Welcome back to another edition of the podcast, and it is our Game Week 20 National League predictions. We've missed out about 5 game weeks due to a various amount of things. Long time no see to my co-host as well. I was saying we've missed out a number of game weeks. That's just myself not doing the actual show. I've not seen my co-host for a very, very long time. So, Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Look, thanks for having me back, Luke. Yeah, I'm doing all right, to be fair. I mean, yeah, apologies. I went away on holiday and then I came back and got a horrific bout of man flu, cold, COVID. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I really wasn't in a suitable manner to be able to put my face on screen and talk about the National League. So, yeah, apologies. But no, it's nice to have you back, and it was good that you were able to do bits of it whilst I was away. And yeah. And now that hopefully your Mac's fixed as well, Luke, is it?
Yeah, like I've said, we've had issues with yourself, and then we've also had issues from my end as well. My MacBook's probably broke at the worst possible time. And this is where I want to actually say thank you to everyone who's obviously watching, firstly, because your support who obviously watched the podcast, that money actually will be paid from YouTube is because of you guys who viewed the podcast. So money from that has gone towards being able to pay for a MacBook, but also a massive thank you to those who actually donated to the podcast, because that means that money can be used to essentially pay me dad back for paying for the MacBook. So I do really appreciate everyone who, helped me out, because I know it's a cliche. A lot of YouTubers say it firstly for those who actually watch, but that genuinely does mean a lot. But also it really, really does mean a lot to those who donated and helped me out. This is me passion. I love doing this. I love speaking about the National League, and you guys helping me out like that's maybe be able to do this again. And there's not even more delays on being able to go back live. But no, Paul, it's been a massive kind of length since we last spoke. We've both been up to quite a lot. Of course, we've both gone on to watch England again in Athens. How was that experience?
I don't want to speak badly about any particular place, but Athens has got to be one of the worst places I've ever been to.
I liked it, me.
Oh, I thought it was horrific. I have to admit, I went with my brother. We paid 35 quid for one night's accommodation. So you can imagine the hotel was okay. The location of it was fairly horrific. Probably the worst street I've ever walked down, to be fair, Luke. But I enjoy the experience of watching England. It's something I've started to do since the Euros in the summer, and I know you've been doing it with your dad for a lot longer, and I can certainly see why there's a real buzz and a bug about it. Unfortunately, I do miss some Wealdstone games and National League games because of it, but no, it's something I do with my brother. My brother's not really a big football watcher, so for me and him to be able to do something together is really quite cool. And yeah, on to the World Cup qualifiers. We haven't got any till March, so we can concentrate on the National League for the next few months, Luke.
Yeah, we certainly can. And both of our sides, to be fair, were banging form. Last time we spoke, I think Wealdstone were 23rd in the league, 5 points adrift as well from being outside of the drop zone. So it wasn't looking good for yourself. And I remember speaking to you, and it felt like you were quite tired with what was going on there, and you were losing hope for the season. So did you particularly expect this type of turnaround? I know players have come back from injury, but
yeah, if I'm going to be honest, no, I didn't. I know when we spoke, that it was a real thing of, am I going to be able to host this next year? Wealdstone aren't going to be in the league. I was very much one that I thought the time was up for Matt Taylor. I was vocal with our sort of Stones Cast podcast group. I felt that I couldn't see it being turned around, and how wrong I am. From that point of losing the 2-goal lead at Ebbsfleet to draw 2-2, which seemed to be a real low, to beating Grimsby away in the cup. Went and did a smash and grab there, really professional performance. And now I'm beating in 5 with Wycombe Wanderers on the horizon in the FA Cup on Saturday. Yeah, things are certainly looking up. I think we're, now, 6th from bottom. So although we're not out of it, because there's a lot of teams in and around 18, 19, 20 points. You're taking a point away at Eastleigh was decent on the weekend. And so, it's looking positive. We've lost Shauna Darkwood again on a long-term injury. Craig Eastman's due back soon. The goalkeeper who stepped in has done very well. So it is looking very, very positive at the moment. Whether they can keep that up, that's still to be seen. But, You know, we may have had our bad run of form early in the season, and now we're going to be a bit more consistent. So we've got to wait and see. We haven't got a league game now till the middle of July, because we've got FA Cup and FA Trophy. Yeah. So, the league takes a back seat for the next few weeks, and I think that's probably a bit of a relief. We can see how we do in the FA Trophy. We got all the shot away. See how we do in the Cup with Wickham on the telly on Saturday on ITV. So exciting times for us, after a really sort of poor start.
I know it's very quickly gone well at Wealdstone, and I don't want to speak about it negatively, but I think you kind of alluded to it there. It can very quickly go downhill again. And this is the thing with Wealdstone. What's going to be interesting is ever since, you've got on that good run of form, I think since you beat Braintree, you've been unbeaten, beaten in 5, you're 6th in the form. Well, actually, joint 4th in the form table, I should say. An FA Cup tie against Wickham. The thing is, what can happen very quickly is when you do get that defeat in the league, are you going to start losing 1 or 2, 3, 4, and it turning into a bad run? And then you find yourselves back in the drop zone. And this is the thing with a Wealdstone side. I think something that you have got this season compared to previous years is you have got a very big squad. And that'll mean a lot, particularly for you guys in the upcoming weeks of the FA Trophy, the FA Cup. You're bound to get injuries. And the fact that you've got quite a big squad, maybe that's the difference this season. Whereas I know last season, the season before, you'd probably say overall, it was, and you might disagree with the form recently, but I'd say they were better squads than the squads you've got now, I would still say. But something that you have got this season that I still think is going to be able to keep Wealdstone up is the fact that you've got a 26-man squad, so you've got the depth there.
Yeah. And I think overall, there's debate with the Wealdstone fans. Is it the strongest squad we have? I don't think it is personally, but we've gone and got Alex Reid from Oldham, and he's going to be vital. Come January, that's going to be a testing time for us. Are we able to keep him? Does the cut run and the money for that help us pay for him? Is he happy to stay? Because he's really been a real catalyst. I think Matt Taylor's been able to pick one, his strongest sides now, and he's sent out a couple on loan. He's brought in a lad from Bristol Rovers, a young lad called Anthony Grant, who was played in League Two for 80 odd games over the last 2 seasons. So he's refined it slightly, and I think he's picking a more settled 15, 16, which is helpful, and probably some of the stronger ones are coming back. So at the moment, it's looking positive. And you look at some of the run form of other teams, we've really only got to be 5th from bottom. That's where we've got to finish, as a minimum. And I think, I wouldn't have said this a few weeks ago, but I think there's probably 4 worse teams than us at this present time. We've got to see how that run goes. But, at the other end of the table, Luke, we've got to talk about your Halifax team who are doing particularly well at the moment.
Yeah, before I do come on to that, of course, the game on Saturday for ourselves, which was very disappointing because, you're starting to build a bit of momentum, doing well in the league. You sit 7th. It was actually postponed against Sutton. I think for me, you look at the way Sutton are going at the moment, and you think that's a winnable game, a game that you want to get on to kind of solidify your place inside the playoffs. I think we could have gone up to 6th if we'd have had that game on, and Rochdale's game was also on. But the issue that we're having at the moment is games are going to start getting postponed. I think all around the country, the weather has been horrendous over the last week or so, particularly in the north. And I think like the West Yorkshire and Lancashire area, the 3 games that was postponed was Halifax and Rochdale. Of course, 2 sides very close to each other in location, and also Fylde, which isn't too far away either from both sides. So you can kind of see the trend there, that there seems to be sides in quite a similar area. The question I want to bring to you, though, Paul, are games starting to get postponed a little bit too easily now? You think of games 20 years ago, and, that Halifax's game would have probably have been on, Rochdale's game would have been on, Fylde's game would have been on. Do you feel it's getting a bit too silly now where games are getting postponed too easily? Or
I mean, possibly, I don't know how bad the weather was up there, Luke. You'll have a better, obviously, view of it than I would have. And the problem is now, and I know it's not a problem, the safety of the players is the most important thing. And I don't think there can be any risk taken. Yes, when you look back on match of the day, etc., from the 70s, 80s, even some of the early 90s. You know, the pitches they played on, there wasn't a blade of grass on there. You know, it was full of sand and mud, and I think from a paying to spectators point of view, yes, they want the games on, but also you want a bit of quality, and you want to see a game that's worthy of the £20 you pay to get in. And if you're playing on absolute pudding of pitches, then, you know, is that the right thing to do, as well as that safety of players? But you're right, you know, our club's a little bit too cautious and call it a bit early. I suppose when it comes to the National League, it's got to be more important, because you don't want what's happened with Fylde on Saturday. I can't remember who they were playing, but gets called off half an hour before.
Fleet, I think, yeah, Fleet, yeah.
You know, that's a long way to go to be called off half hour before. At least Halifax have taken into consideration they're playing Sutton, who are, you know, down here in the south. They've got a long journey to take. You know, do they take a gamble? I think what's really frustrating, Luke, is when something gets called off and actually it could be playable at 3 o'clock, but you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because clubs have got to make a decision, because they don't want that AFC Fylde challenge. And it's happened to Wealdstone over the last couple of years. You know, teams have turned up. Southend did it a couple of years ago. They turned up and it's called off by the referee. So I get the predicament both ways. I'm not sure they get called off too easily. I think there's the safety of the players, the quality of the game, the protection of the pitch for longer, that sort of bigger picture, making sure that they're going to be fit for more games. You don't want to play one game. I mean, if they played Halifax's pitch, then you have a rugby game on it. It's going to be absolutely screwed. It's going to be screwed for weeks, right? So you kind of go, we'll call this one off, because actually it means the next 3 or 4 might be on. So, yeah, I don't envy the clubs, because you get, you know, you look at social media and they have an absolute meltdown. Tim Pot this and Tim Pot that, and you can't get a game on, and what a joke. You know, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's a real difficult one for them.
What I found amusing when Halifax called the game off, and I think it was Friday, I think we actually did it a day before, I will say the majority were Oldham fans, but there was 1 or 2 Rochdale fans who were going in the comments calling us Tim Pot for calling the game off, and saying, here we go again. And how embarrassing it is from our perspective. And then 24 hours later, Rochdale called their game off, which was quite funny. And to be fair, I think if Oldham had that game at home, I know they're a totally different kettle of fish to Halifax and Rochdale as well, in terms of, you know, the budget that they've got and the surface. But I reckon their game would have been called off again as well, if they had a home game on Saturday. So for me, overall, I found that quite amusing, I have to say. But no, it was frustrating for us. Like I said, one good run of form at the moment. I think even if you look back at those defeats against Rochdale and York, from a Halifax fan's perspective, we played well. And if it wasn't for, I think, individual mistakes and lack of concentration, we'd have come away from both games with 2 wins and 6 points above where we are at the moment. And, you know, if you had an extra 6 points on our current placement, we'd be in the title race. And I know, obviously, we're not. And it's all in hindsight. But for me, overall, I look at that and I genuinely think at the moment, Halifax are a team to be feared. I don't think we're going to be in the title race, but, you know, you look at our form, still 7th. Of course, we didn't play on Saturday, yet we're still inside the playoffs because Solihull lost. And, of course, Yeovil did as well. And for me, overall, I do honestly think that I think there's 4 or 5 teams who are currently inside the playoffs who I think will stay inside the playoffs this season, and no one will be able to touch them. But I think there is going to be 2 playoff spots up for grabs, in my opinion. And, you know, your Halifaxes, your Solihuls, your Yeovils at the moment, who are going to be able to grab them, your Altrinchams even, or I even look at like your Southends and your Hartlepools. And Hartlepool's aside for me, who I want to speak about in a bit more depth shortly, but I'm not ruling them outside of finishing inside a playoff spot this season.
No, I mean, looking at the league at the moment, it's very condensed. Tamworth are in 14th place and only 4 points off the playoffs. Now, listen, I know when we talk about the fact, you know, if they beat them and they beat them, there's teams with games in hand. You look at Halifax, Rochdale, Oldham have all got games in hand on Gateshead and Barnet. You know, they'll bring that a little bit closer. Halifax and Rochdale and Oldham can really pull away from the likes of Solihull and Yeovil if they take that game in hand, because, you know, there's a jump from, like you said, Luke, from the 29 points that Halifax have got in 7th to 37 points in fourth. So you look at that top four, Oldham could probably touch on Gateshead, but really then it's the best of the rest as it stands. So, and it's one of those leagues again, and we say it every year, any team can beat any team on its day. You know, there is some freak results appear and some good performances. So it's going to make it interesting. You know, having a midweek fixture list as well is always a tough one for travelling teams, which, you know, could send out some mixed results and some unusual results. And then obviously they all go into the FA Cup and FA Trophy. So there's going to be a couple of weeks break before we have to concentrate on the league again. So they're really going to Wednesday night is going to be the one where they want to pick up 3 points and have a good performance going into those cup matches.
You speak of the FA Trophy and FA Cup. I wish we had that break a few weeks ago when we all had our issues, to be honest.
Yeah.
It would have been nice, wouldn't it, if everything fell into place, but never mind anyway. But no, nearly 60 people watching, and we're only 15 minutes in, which is brilliant for a Sunday night show. Please remember to like and subscribe. Subscribing to the channel builds the community up even more. I'm a bit out of practice, as you can tell, doing this kind of thing. And then also, a massive thank you to our sponsors, Cards Accepted. If you use the link in the description, you'll get 50% off your card machine. No contracts or monthly fees. Also, I've actually recorded an interview with Justin Rees, and that is currently available to channel members. If you did donate to the channel, then drop me a message, and due to that, I will send you a link out to be able to watch the interview as well. It will be coming out to everyone, but at the moment, for those who obviously support the channel further, we have to give them early access, so they're going to get a few days early access, and then it will be available to everyone else. But this is a trailer video for anyone who may want to become a member, support the channel further, and get early access to this interview.
Like it's big enough to be exciting, but it's also small enough that it really does feel local and really does feel like a local community club, like the ones we all grew up with.
What was that process like for you taking over Southend?
This could take up the whole podcast, so let me think.
I'm going to start that again, actually, because I've not done that in the best way possible. Let me just start again, everyone. When I speak about being out of practice, this is exactly what I mean. Right, blooming heck. Know what? I'll remove that from screen, and then I'm going to add that. There we go.
I feel like it's big enough to be exciting, but it's also small enough that it really does feel local and really does feel like a local community club, like the ones we all grew up with.
What was that process like for you taking over Southend?
This could take up the whole podcast, so let me think how I answer that.
Was there ever a time for you where you thought, this is more hassle than it's worth?
The stress and also the financial outlay was getting quite significant. He'll bring a lot, right? He's grown technology companies to really large levels. Like the rest of us, loves football. He was actually looking at other clubs and then he really fell in love with our story, similar to me really. We're glad that he chose to join us. He's ambitious, he's a disruptor, he wants things to move quickly, he wants us to move forward.
Yeah, how is that relationship since you've come into the club with the likes of Kevin Mayer and John Still?
I think it's good. Hopefully I think it's good. When we take the first brick out and start the rebuilding will depend on all sorts of things, but it is an absolute priority to put a new East Stand in.
I just want to ask you, about the fan base. How supportive have they been?
Oh, it's been incredible. The fan base really galvanised. The crowds were really, really strong, and even in the National League before we came over. They've been incredibly strong since. That bond between the players and the fans that were built under difficult circumstances, I think was really, really special. We could see that. I didn't know how long the honeymoon period would last, right? But they've been very nice to me and they've cut me some slack. You want to manage expectations a little bit. Not too much, because football is about dreaming and hoping, and every team should wake up in August going, hey, we're going to win the league or make the playoffs, and our fans should be no different. I want Southend to be proud of its club and feel like that we're representing them the way they want to be represented.
That's all you're getting for now, everyone. But no, if you are a member, like I've mentioned, you will get access to that interview. It is out now. For those who don't want to become a member, that will be going out to everyone in the next few days. So yeah, if you do want to support the channel further, you can do that. Also, we've introduced something called Buy Me a Coffee. Someone suggested it. If you also want to donate to the channel that way, you can use it. There's a link in the description. I'm not I don't know much about it, but I've set an account up anyway, so you can do that if you would like to, or you can just support the channel by just watching the show, which really does mean a lot. But no, I think, we'll move on to the next topic then of tonight's podcast. We'll actually come to the live chat thinking about it. And let's have a look at what everyone has been saying. I never want to forget the live chat. So let's have a look. And the first person into that was Mr. Luke. Hello, gents. 5-star performance against us against Maidenhead on Saturday. Feels good to get that all-important win that we needed. Massive game on Tuesday against Rochdale. No pressure. Lads, for Gateshead, they're a side for me, and it's the same old story. Something happens in the season where you feel like it's going to disrupt the season and they're going to kind of fall off a cliff, yet they always overcome the difficulties, and once again, going to Maidenhead and putting 5 past them clearly shows that Gateshead mean business this season and are not going to roll over, are they, at all?
No, I mean, we spoke about last 2 seasons. There seems to be, like you said, there's something that there's a bump in the road that they have to navigate. And other clubs, would they be able to deal with it as well as Gateshead have? They clearly have a very, very good board and a very good set of board directors who look after their club very well. And I know they've had the good news about the ground and being able to play in playoffs and everything else, which is a real fillip for them. But get another new manager in, lose a couple of players, sign a couple of players. It's the same old story Gateshead. And listen, Maidenhead aren't on the best of run of forms, but to go down there and put 5 past them, where they have given teams a good go down there, and we know Maidenhead are capable of picking up results against those so-called big teams and those playoff teams. So, Gateshead, again, like I said, being in 4th place, there's that little bit of a gap, and if they just keep going, they're going to be ones to be considered for promotion, because they'll go into that playoffs with a real sense of I guess, what might have been last year, and they don't want to sort of give that up this time round. But a tough game in the week. That's a really tough game. Not too far to travel, but Rochdale's not too far to travel. Full-time team. So on paper, a really good football match coming up on Tuesday down up there in the northeast.
Yeah, so far you look at Gateshead, and when the sides are, in similar positions to them flying in the league so far this season, when they've come up against those sides, overall they've got a good record. Beating Barney at home, getting a point at Oldham. Overall you look at Gateshead, and they've certainly been able to compete with sides near the top end of the table. So it's certainly going to be an interesting game on Tuesday. As for Maidenhead, just looking at that result, Maidenhead have now not won in 6, 5 goals against them. And something that concerns me about them this season is the fact that they're leaking an awful amount of goals. And what's often kept Maidenhead up in this division in previous years is the fact that they can defend very well and they can grind results out against the better teams. Now, for me, you look at the form overall, they're struggling against sides around them in the table overall. They're not getting the odd results against the better sides in the league. I think the only one I can recall was actually beating Barnet. Apart from that, the wins that they've had have been against mid-table and sides around them in the league. But I even say that and speak about sides beating sides around them. And yes, they've done that to a certain extent, but they've also lost a lot of games to sides near them in the table. So for me, I look at Maidenhead so far this season, and I think they're a side for me that I could really see dropping down this season. They're in the drop zone at the moment. I think if I was a Maidenhead fan, what's frustrating is the fact that this Kinsella money, no one knows where that money's going. The supporters club I spoke to a bit about it, and they said that a lot of it's going to be going on the stadium up there, a little bit unaware about what's going to happen in the future of that money. Is any of that money going to be put towards the playing budget? Because that's something I think Maidenhead need to do, in my opinion, at the moment. Because I think for a side like Maidenhead, if they drop down into the National League South or North or whatever division it would be that they're being nowadays, I genuinely couldn't see them coming back up. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I agree. Alan Devonshire's done an amazing job, and that they punch above their weight every year, and it gets tougher for them. There's no 2 ways about that, and we talk about them a lot in as much as, are they going to be the ones that go this year? Are they going to be the ones that go this year? And I think they have had a tough run of games when you look at who they've played. It's they'll have easier games, but I think you're right, Luke. Beating teams in and around you is the important bit, and nicking those 1 to 3 points off of the top teams every now and then, like they have done in the past 2 seasons, is what allows them to be 16th, 17th, 18th, or wherever they finish. So if they're not beating teams around them and then they start to get drubbed, 4-1, 5-0 by the teams above, there'll be a real crisis of confidence. And like you said, they're not going to have big budgets at Maidenhead, and they never would have, and they'd admit that themselves. And it's going to be a tough winter for them, I think. Similar to what we see at Wealdstone. So, I feel for them, but they've got a very wily old manager there, and I'm pretty sure he'll know what it takes. And they've just got to pick up 2 or 3 results and they'll be back in it. But the longer it goes on, the harder it's going to be for them, without a doubt.
So would you be backing them to be able to stay up at this moment in time?
It's a moment, no, purely because, like you said, they're not scoring a massive amount. They are letting goals in. Two of the worst things you could do in any football team at any level, at any age. If you're going to let goals in and not score too many, you're not going to win too many matches. So, no. But they are the team with the history and the experience to pick up 1 or 2 results and just get themselves back above that dreaded fourth from bottom or below. So I wouldn't discount them, but they're finding it tougher this year, and they will find it tougher this season than they have done in the past couple.
If you look at that bottom 4 at the moment, you've got Ebbsfleet, who I think everyone's kind of nailed on to go down. They're currently on 8 points after 18 games. They're 11 points away from being out of the drop zone, and we're only 18 games into this. Well, they're only 18 games into the season. Then you've got Boston, who are above them on 14 points. I think that win against Braintree will probably... A lot of people may say that they've got a chance of being able to stay up because of that win, if they can pick up a bit of form. Then you've got Maidenhead, then you've got Fylde, then you've got Braintree, then you've got your boys Wealdstone, and then you've got Woking. And then above that, you look at the sides, like your Aldershots, your Southend's, your Dagenhams. I don't know about you, but I can't see Aldershot, Southend or Dagenham being in a relegation battle at the back end of the season. Some people may say Aldershot. So if you're thinking of 4 sides that are going to go down, I personally think the league's getting a lot stronger. To be only 19 games into the season, to think, in my opinion, there's only going to be 7 sides involved in a relegation battle. I personally think that Maidenhead, like I said, the league's getting stronger. And I think this may be the season where they do drop down. I don't know what your thoughts are, but on that, in the drop zone.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Funny enough, when I was doing the predictions tonight, and I'd written next to Dagenham and Shot's mid-table clash, which, they're not going to... They're Dagenham, Southend, Aldershot, possibly Tamworth, aren't going to probably worry the playoff places, but you'd also they're not going to worry the bottom 4. But it doesn't take too many games one way or the other for the likes of Aldershot, maybe Woking and obviously Wealdstone below, to get dragged in. But it's the form that bottom 4 have got. If you look at it, there's only 3 wins out of 5, 10, 20 games between them all in the last 5. And that's not a lot of good, whereas Braintree have picked up a couple. Wealdstone obviously have not lost in 5. Woking are on a worrying run of form. Aldershot stopped it in the week or on Saturday. So it's not to say that Aldershot, Woking, Southend, I don't think will drop in, or Dagenham. I mean, I know watching social media, Dagenham fans are at a loss as to how they've just dropped a little bit like a stone after some really positive early form. But yes, that bottom 4 does look worrying, doesn't it, Luke, for those teams, the supporters of those teams, rather. I think Braintree have recruited well and probably going to start getting into their stride, and hopefully will. I think Woking, if anyone, will be the team that starts to get sucked in as well.
Yeah, they'll probably be the big side, who there's always seems to be quite a big club, isn't there, who always seem to be dragged into a relegation battle. And I think at the moment, Woking, a well-established National League club, they could be the side that could be dragged into it. Of course, they've had the takeover now. I don't know if it's officially all gone through, but maybe, in the winter months when they'll start recruiting more players, and this is where they become stronger. But I believe they've got a very small squad as well at the moment. So I'm a bit concerned for Woking being dragged into it. As for Aldershot, your Southend, your Dagenhams, maybe Aldershot. I'd like to think they've got too much to be in a relegation scrap at the back end of the season. Tamworth, although at the moment they're on brilliant form and there's nothing to suggest they're going to fall off a cliff and be dragged down, maybe for me, with them just coming up into the National League, sides may start to find them out a little bit as the season progresses further on. I think they've got quite a small squad as well, and a lot of players that haven't played in the National League before. Maybe in the upcoming months, they could start being dragged into the relegation battle. That would be quite a bold call at the moment because they've just beaten Dagenham at home. But they're a side I won't rule out of being dragged into it. Of course, we're speaking about in advance and it's quite a long time off yet, but I could see them being dragged into it as well. As for Dagenham, I want to speak a bit about that Tamworth v Dagenham game. A big win for Tamworth. You know, they're a side, FA Cup this weekend. You know, they're back in action. Of course, they're playing against Burton away from home. As for Dagenham, that's another defeat. In the last 3 games, they've dropped points from winning positions in all games. They could have took maximum points from all those games. And if you actually look, they've dropped 8 points in those games. Now, if you add 8 points onto Dagenham's current total, where they're currently sitting 15th on 22 points, they'd be on 30 points. They'd currently be 6th in the National League table. And that's the difference at the moment. You know, you look at that Barnet game, they were 3-1 up. They ended up losing that game. The Boston game, they were 1-0 up. They ended up dropping points to them and drawing that game. And then taking the lead v Tamworth and losing to Tamworth. It's fine margins. And you look at those games for Dagenham, and this is why they can't progress on and manage to maintain a playoff spot or finish inside the playoffs coming at the end of the season, because they're so inconsistent. And you look at those 3 games and you think they're 3 games that they shouldn't have lost. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'd be frustrated if I was a Dagenham fan.
No, I agree. And you know, I bemoaned that fact with Wealdstone earlier in the season. I think they went 11. There was 11 points that they gave away in the last 10 minutes plus of a match. So winning positions went to draws went to losses. And all of a sudden, you know, you're 11 points worse off because of what's happening on the field. And there's a number of reasons why. You know, are Dagenham under a lot of pressure the whole game, and then actually they just succumb to it because actually that's just how it is. You know, there's you're speaking to manager, they'll tell you, you know, it's not the last 10 minutes is the problem. It's the 80 minutes before where you're being constantly bombarded and your back four's having to be resolute and your midfield's on the back foot, etc., etc. So I think I think you're right. That is a really worrying result. Barnet are full of quality. We all know that. You know, they're full of quality. They're going to get possibly promoted. They're going to be in the hunt. But you've got to manage a game at 3-1 up at home when you need the points. Yeah, without a doubt. You've got to manage not losing the game after being 1-0 up, even if you take a draw. Yeah, and so that must be a really hugely frustrating thing for Dagenham fan, because as I said, I saw it Wealdstone, you know, in that patch earlier on in the season before their little run they've had. So, and it's frustrating because, you know, where is the management of the game? What are these players? What responsibility are they taking for themselves on that pitch? There's only so much a manager can do. Yes, you can recruit the right way. That's 100% the best way to get your decent squad, and that's what good managers are.
I think they've recruited well, don't they? Overall,
they recruit. You know, they recruit well, and then they get them playing. But when those players cross the white line, there is an element that they've got to do things for themselves. And these are professional footballers. They're getting paid not a bad amount of money, and to succumb 3-1 as an example, plus other results, must be worrying for Dagenham fans, and that inconsistency that they've shown maybe since Ben Strevens came in. You know, stripped squads and they've had to rebuild and everything else. But you know, the fact that they're not showing a level of consistency for a club of that size, and you know, there was going to be a takeover, then there wasn't. So slight uncertainty off the pitch as well with Dagenham. You know, it's a really worrying sign, because a bit like Woking, you can see a club like that being dragged in, and if you're going to start losing 4-3 after being 3-1 up, that's only going to affect your confidence. The players are only going to think, shit, you know, is it happening again? So they've got to arrest that slide ASAP, without a shadow of a doubt. They've got to arrest that slide. Where that's coming from, I don't know. Who they got in the week? They've got Aldershot, a mid-table, potentially could go to a 6. You know, it's a 6-pointer for them, if you like, to get a little bit of form going again.
like I said, I've spoke about recruitment there. They have recruited very well. And I look at this Dagenham side and I think they should at least be in the top half come the end of the season, if not top 10. When we were doing our predictions at the start of the season, I was tempted to sneak Dagenham inside the playoff spots because I do genuinely think they've got a good squad. And I think Ben Strevens overall is a good manager. I think you might say he has to take responsibility with his management for the last couple of games, you might say. Being in winning positions for 3 games and to drop points. I think the manager's got to kind of look at the tactical side of things from that perspective. But the players, like you mentioned, have also got to take responsibility. And I look at this squad and I think it's a very capable squad. You've got Josh Rees, you've got the likes of Dion Pereira, Junior Moraes, Ryan Hill. You look at the squad overall and it's a very, very strong National League squad. Tim Akininola, of course, he was at Chesterfield, did well for them. They've got him on loan. He's a good player in the middle of the park as well. So I don't understand what it is about this Dagenham side. And they're another side where I could see them flying up the table, but I could also see them staying in mid-table as well, like they always do. And I think if you're a Dagenham fan, even well before Ben Strevens came in, they must be very frustrated with what they've seen down in Dagenham in the last couple of years, because they're always mid-table. There's always that, I feel like there's an expectation with Dagenham because they're a former Football League side that they should probably be doing better than what they are doing. Yeah, it's always very stalemate there. Nothing seems to be happening. They're always mid-table. They're mid-table. So for me overall, I think if I was a Dagenham fan, I'd be very, very frustrated with what I'm seeing. And I thought this season might be the season where they could finally push on and at least compete for the playoff spots, because it's something they haven't done in a fair few seasons now. Bob's come in tonight and he said, "Evening all. Very happy to see you both again after a while." No, Bob, it's good to see you. It's good to see, the regulars in the live chat, as well as a few new faces as well who I've noticed come in tonight. Got Colin as well, who said, "Welcome back. Cheers. Thanks for tuning in, Colin." Mickey's come in. Paul.
Oh, you big girl. That's man flu. Oh, Mickey, I'm not gonna dress it up. I didn't feel very well at all. I think you're right. It's I did, poor old Luke. I left it to almost the last minute to sort of tell him that I couldn't do it, because I was really hoping I could, but. Yeah, it wasn't a fun week. I had a brilliant holiday, came back, travelled home with it, and it just never sort of went away. But I'm all right now, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, that it's done now and I'll have a nice winter and you won't see me sort of cool off any more of these podcasts, because I've got man flu.
Yeah, I've got to take responsibility as well for a few of the shows that we've missed. Last week, I think I got my laptop back on Wednesday, but I couldn't do a show on Thursday because I was actually seeing a band called Tina's, so I couldn't actually do a show. They were pretty good, by the way. For anyone who wants to go and see into that sort of music, I would suggest going and seeing them. And then on Friday, for some reason, I'm sure I definitely had something on anyway, so I couldn't rearrange it for Friday either. So, yeah, it's good to be back now, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I know we've got FA Trophy, FA Cup and all that. I wouldn't say rubbish, because obviously the sides that are still in those competitions can appreciate that. Or I know we'll be in the FA Trophy, but I'm not particularly too fussed about that. But we've got all that to get through. We'll do a few bonus episodes in there, and then after that we'll be fully back Thursday night, 9 p.m, doing all our predictions. Christopher's come in once again, said, "Evening, gents. Great win for the Heed yesterday. The buzz is truly back on the Heed now. It's official. The 10-year licence for the stadium has been signed off." And that's brilliant news, because now at the end of the season, there's no concerns ongoing the season. You know that you're going to get an opportunity to compete inside those playoffs. Fingers crossed now. So that's excellent news for you guys. And then Villa TV's come in. Paul, who's a Tamworth fan.
Yeah, big up, lads, up the Tamworth. What a second half performance yesterday. We're playing good at the minute. Let's move on to Burton. So, yeah, big game for them at the weekend versus local rivals, I guess, sort of in that Midlands area. Big game for them to try and go and prove themselves against a higher team. Listen, Tamworth is a tough place to go. Plastic pitch, big, strong, sort of industrial, workman-like side. That's no disrespect to them. They use their strengths, and it's proving fruitful for them. And have a couple of weeks off. 3 hits in the FA Cup. I don't know who they've got in the FA Trophy, but I think they're going to be very happy with their early season performances and where they sit in that table. And you know, if I was a Tamworth fan, having come up from the National League North, then yeah, I'll be taking exactly where they are and being happy with that. So good luck to them against Burton on Saturday.
They're becoming a side, Tamworth, where sides are like, oh no, I don't want to play against Tamworth. You know, I know if Halifax had Tamworth, be like, oh God, because you know what to expect from them. They're not a nice side to play against. You know, it's not going to be a pretty match to watch. And this is why a lot of the better sides in the division have particularly not done well against them, because they can just spoil a game. And from their perspective, that's brilliant. But for the sides like your Barnets, your Gatesheads, your Rochdales, they always seem to struggle against them because they try and play football. And Tamworth literally just long throw into the box. And most of the time it seems to come off like it did against Halifax, to be fair. But no, like I said, they know what they're doing. I think they're going to know how to stay up in this division. And we've seen sides time and time again. If you look at the squads on paper, you might think, yeah, they're going to go down, which I think most people would agree with at the start of the season. Yet they just find ways to be able to grind results out. They kind of find a style, and that's something Tamworth have done. Maidenhead are known for it as well. I know they're struggling this season, but they're kind of doing what Maidenhead usually do, I think, Tamworth at the moment, is just finding ways to win and grind out results. And then we've had Caroline, who's a channel member, said, I've watched the interview, very interesting. Cheers, Caroline. And then we've had Dave, who said, evening lads, just about picked myself off the floor after our debacle against Gateshead. Great intro video. Luke, yeah, we've spoke a little bit about that. It's not looking too well at Maidenhead at the moment. The one thing I will say is, when they're on a bad run, they always seem to pull it out of the bag and win 2 or 3 games, which gets them out of the drop zone. For me this season, overall, like I've said, I think the league's getting a lot stronger, and I think Maidenhead are a lot weaker defensively, particularly. So I think they could drop down this season. Then we've had Ash, who's come in, Paul.
Evening, Luke and Paul. Good to see you back. How do you feel about having shots on FA Trophy, Paul? Well, I'm going to be honest, actually, you know, as a Wealdstone fan, I think probably Aldershot, it wasn't the most exciting draw that you could get in, as much as I think it's difficult because someone like Wealdstone, we need to consider wanting to go and win the FA Trophy, get to Wembley and try and get some sort of silverware like they have done back in the 80s, etc., etc. The problem we've got is you look at Aldershot, they may have a very similar opinion, so that it's going to be a strong team put out by the shots. You know, if we drew a Halifax, a Barnet, a Forest Green, you know, are they going to concentrate on the FA Trophy? And you know, Wealdstone fans would like to go deep in it. Wembley is a stone's throw from where we play. You know, you can get to Wembley by train from where we are in a couple of stops. You know, so I think we would really like to concentrate and do well. Obviously, league positions aside, but getting someone like Aldershot, it's like that's just a bit of a tricky one. I know we've gone down to the Rec and got a good result, but you know, to replicate that again is going to be tough. So yeah, not the most exciting, not the best, but it's a winnable game for either team. And you know, both teams have got to look at this. I think it's a chance to get to Wembley, or go deep in the competition.
I think it's an awful draw for both sides, because I think Aldershot fans will be wanting to go deep into the competition themselves, because, of course, they've never been to Wembley before, and it's something that, you know, a club of Aldershot size they'll really, really want to do. I think they can probably agree this season that they're probably not going to push on for the playoffs. I don't think the squad's got the quality to be able to do that. So for them to be able to solidify another spot in the National League for next season and to have an FA Cup, not an FA Cup, but an FA Trophy run and get to Wembley would mean a lot to Aldershot fans, and for them to focus on something like that. Because I remember when we played them in the quarterfinals a few years ago, the FA Trophy, there was over 2,000 there for an FA Trophy game in the quarterfinals, which says a lot, I think, about how much it meant to Aldershot fans to be able to get to Wembley. And I think that's something they're certainly very passionate about this season, especially with them being out of the FA Cup as well. And then we've had Cardinals Ultra, who I believe is a working fan, said, evening lads, shocker at Barnet, fingers crossed for next couple of games. And then we've had James, who's coming and said, nice to see you back, Luke, a York fan. Massive thank you to James, if it is the James I'm thinking of. He did donate a lot of money to help me fix my MacBook. So James, if you want to see that Justin Rees interview, I know you're not a member, if you send me a message, I'll make it accessible for you as kind of say thank you for donating to the channel and helping me out with that. But he's also said, nice to see you back, Luke. York bounced back well. Very against Yeovil. The sending off helped, but we stuck to our principles and played well. Tough game Tuesday. I'd take a point as Alti at our bogey. Team, yeah. I know, of course, York lost to Forest Green, and I wish we could have done a podcast that week to give me a bit of an opportunity to gloat, because the amount of stick I got when we lost to you guys, I would have loved to have done a podcast. We haven't spoke, have we, since that all kicked off, have we, Paul?
No.
Oh, did you see the clip with a Forest Green fan?
No, because I've been away, haven't I? So I haven't sort of seen, been on top of what I would normally be. But no, I didn't, unfortunately.
Well, I'll have to send you the clip after this. But basically, myself and Rob did a Twitter space. We had great numbers that night, don't get me wrong, but a lot of York fans tuned in after we just obviously lost to them. First, we had a lot of York fans that came on and spoke. We thought they were going to speak about the game. They came on to just gloat and chant about Halifax and how good York are. We then stopped York fans calling up because it was just getting too much and moved on to other clubs. And what we've always been wanting to do is get a Forest Green fan on to speak about, them, because they're doing well in the league, but we always struggle to get a Forest Green fan on. And then someone came in the live chat with a Forest Green badge, like on the Twitter logo. So we're buzzing, thinking we've got a Forest Green fan to be able to come on and speak. He came on, broad Yorkshire accent. We didn't clock on. About 20 seconds in, I'm like, I have a feeling here. And then he was speaking about Forest Green and how good Forest Green were. And then he suddenly just changed it all about York and started chanting York chants. So to be fair to him, he did do his dirty there, but I do respect it, to be fair. So yeah, I'll have to send you the clip afterwards because you kind of had to be there. But no, we've also had Mason who's come in and said, I'm pleased with the win for Gateshead versus Maidenhead yesterday. And then this is something I did want to speak a bit about tonight, and it's good that James is coming. Ugly, Healer can go on in the background. I ain't too fussed about it. It was always going to happen for me either personally if there was a winner. Ugly seems to have learnt from Yeovil at York. Yeah, that's something I think we do need to speak about before we come on to the predictions, as I did put it in like the Twitter post I did do. I don't know if you've seen the tweets between them once again. Sounds like you have. So what's your thoughts on it overall? For me, I'll give my opinions afterwards. But
Matt Ugler has learned from his Yeovil days. And we've talked about this, haven't we, Luke? I didn't give him an awful lot of credit for the way that he dealt with it at Yeovil. And then when he went to York and he started to talk about being on a promotion train early on, and actually they were lucky at some points to even look like they were going to stay in the National League. And he was quite vocal on social media, and it was a case of just, Yeovil, he was very much sort of felt like he was playing Championship manager with a real life football team and all that sort of stuff. So he has learned, without a doubt, he's learned from Yeovil, and he's got him and whoever he works with at the club, they've got York in a very, very good position. Excellent up front, don't let many goals in, exciting to watch, score goals, blah, blah, blah. Everything you want in a National League team, they've got at York. Clearly they're on the up, they're buoyant. You've only got to see that, Luke, with the amount that come on your Twitter space and talk about York. Would you have got that 2 years ago? Probably not. And that's no disrespect to them. You probably wouldn't have. For him to come out at the end of that game and take a jibe at Mark Cooper and Yeovil and four fingers up, just stay, like as Erling Haaland had said to Mikel Arteta famously, just stay humble. Just get on. Let your football team do the talking. There's no need for you to come out and start jibing. As far as we can say, we've spoken with Mark Cooper. He's never spoken ill of Ugler or anything else in particular. He mentioned that he wasn't great down there. He's never come out, and to pick on him, that seemed a bit harsh. Martin Hellier is always going to come back and try and protect his club and his manager and his team. But we know Martin Hellier's got form as well, and he's a little bit of a loose cannon. And to be honest with you, neither of them have really covered themselves in glory. And fortunately, York are a good football team, so they can just get on and as James has said there, let them crack on. I think it's just a bit petty, a little bit like look at me or look at you, ha ha, whatever it may be. Just pipe down, crack on, get on. York are doing exceptionally well, and we've got to give them all the credit in the world after last season. And they look like they're going to be one of the really strong promotion teams. If not, they will get promoted as champions potentially, because they've done everything right on the field. Recruitment, good manager, great way of playing, and they've started off really well. Everything they didn't do last year. So Matt Ugler just needs to pipe down, show a bit of respect, just move on. And Martin Hellier, he needs to pipe down, move on. Yeah. Yeovil didn't cover themselves in glory on the pitch. And Mark Cooper's made a point of that in his after match press conference. He wasn't too happy with the discipline of the players and da. They'll move on. They'll dust themselves down. They'll go another time on in the week. York will go off to Alty and probably get a good result.
Now, I would read out the tweets that Martin Healer firstly put out, but I don't think I could on this podcast, to be honest. I think the channel will probably get it won't be a channel anymore. And I don't think you could read out Matt Ugler's comment either. But basically, like I've said, they've had a bit of a spat between themselves. To be honest, it is so pathetic. And we're going to focus on Matt Ugler because they're doing so well in the league at the moment. But to be fair, Martin Hellier, I think it is, doesn't cover himself in any glory either, with what he said in the past and what he said replying to Matt Ugler. But for me, I look at Matt Ugler and I just think he's a people pleaser for York. If you're a York fan, you'll adore him. And I think everyone else in the league would probably love him as his owner, because, to be honest, he clearly has a passion to be an owner and wants to do well, not just on the field, but off the field. What he doesn't remember is a year ago, he made a mess of it in the first year of York with the recruitment and everything. And, you called it, didn't you, Paul? In that first year, you said that, honestly, I'm not a big fan with their recruitment and everything. I don't necessarily think York are going to do well like everyone's expecting them to. And to be honest, they were near the drop zone last season. I think they survived by 1 or 2 points at the end of the season. Of course, this season it's a different story. They've got their act together. They're doing well in the league, top of the league at the moment. And this season, Matt Ugler has just come out and full on just trying to wind everyone up, even more than what we were doing last year. Came to Halifax. Halifax done nothing against York. And after the game, York put a smug comment out about the attendance and everything. And it's just things like that. He's so petty and unprofessional. To be honest, I'm not a fan of Matt Ugler at all, if I'm being honest, with how he carries himself out on social media. And I know everyone out there, everyone wants honesty. They want an owner who's going to come out and say it how it is. And I appreciate that. And we don't have enough of that in today's society at all, with players, managers. No one comes out and actually says it how it is. But there's also a line that you don't cross. And I do honestly think that Matt Ugler crosses that line most weekends now, to be honest.
Yeah, and like I said, I think, by us talking about it, I think we've got the right attitude. Hopefully many of the fans that listen to this, your fans as well, will probably cringe at what Matt Ugler does. But let York do the talking on the pitch, because they are doing that more often than not every week. And they're a good team to go and watch. They're a good team, clearly at the top of that table. And, someone might have a word in his ear and tell him to pipe down. And hopefully that's what will happen. And they'll move on, and they will be a real force for the coming season, the rest of that season. And, I hope they do well, because he's done it the right way this time round, and he's learned from his mistakes. But don't get too big for your boots just yet. There's a long way to go. So, keep your counsel and stay humble and just keep going like they're doing, and they will be a real threat for promotion.
Thing is, what I find funny is when York do lose 1 or 2 games, he's always on saying how much he respects the opposition and everything. Thank you to the fans who went, and I respect the opposition. They were a good team. Good luck for the rest of the season. And that's exactly what he'd do at the end of the season if York didn't win the league and they lost out in the playoffs. I can just tell now. So for me, he's just, I'm not a massive fan. He's a wind-up merchant. I think if he was my owner, I'd probably love him, but as someone from an external perspective, honestly, I look at him and I just think I'm not a massive fan of Matt Ogler overall, to be honest. But that's enough of that. I think Martin Hellier as well doesn't cover himself in glory, and he's someone Yeovil doing okay in the league at the moment, of course, outside of the playoffs now. But he's someone who doesn't cover himself in glory either, and it gives us something to talk about. But I think from both of their perspectives, to be fully grown men and to be just in arguments like they are doing on social media, I find it very pathetic, to be honest. But no, we'll move on to the predictions now. Before I do that, let's have a look at the scores on the doors for the Predictions League. Of course, it's been a long time since we did this. The last person to actually do it with me was Rob, who always seems to beat me and do very well, which isn't a good thing at all. I said if he beat me last time, then he won't be coming back on. And guess what? He went and did. He bet me once again. I actually regained a lead after you went when you were on, Paul. Then you've gone jollying off in blooming Florida or wherever you've been in Athens. You've come back and you're back level again.
Cheers, Rob. Yeah.
So
he did actually give me the podcasts. Yeah, he gave me the opportunity to pick the results. And I said, no, Rob, you carry on. You seem to do better than I do. So, yeah, I have had to pick my own this week. And there's no help from Rob or anyone else. But I appreciate his help over the last few weeks and anyone else who's picked the results on my behalf. But, yeah, it's back to me. So you'll probably take the lead again, Luke.
Hopefully. I saw that comment as well. I bet he won't want to predict the results at all. And yeah, you went, no, you can do it. It's fine. And I'm like, yeah, I thought so. But no, there's no hiding it this week. You've got to get on with your predictions, and hopefully I can regain the lead. But no, this is the table as it looks at the moment. York back at top at the moment. Of course, they slipped down to second after losing to Forest Green. They went top, but they're back top of the league now. Barnet's still third. Feels like a bit of a long time ago since they were last top of the league, but of course they could be top after Wednesday if they can win their game, and Forest Green and York both actually drop points in their game. So after Wednesday, it could be one of three sides that could be top of the league. Gateshead, Oldham, Rochdale and Halifax make up the playoffs. It does feel like at the moment it's Halifax, Solihull and Yeovil, but Rochdale, if you actually look at their form, they could be slipping out of the playoffs very, very soon. Altrincham sit 10th, Eastleigh, Sutton, Hartlepool, any sides out of probably from 15th, no, I'd say from 16th to 10th, who you could see making a push for the playoffs this season, Paul? Is there any sides for you there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Tamworth will want to consolidate where they are. Hartlepool potentially with the new manager, and they've had a bit of an upturn in fortunes. They're starting to score goals again. Sutton are a little bit inconsistent, but they've got quite a young squad, and I think I certainly put them in there to get promoted, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. And like we've discussed, Dagenham, Redbridge, Aldershot, Woking could go either way. Southend are a funny one, aren't they? They're just not hitting the form that they've had previously. They're not firing all cylinders, but if they could, I think they're the team out of all of those that could progress and get further forward. But they're really not showing any level of consistency at the moment. So I think that mid-table will be a mid-table. I don't think that will change too much. Like we said, a couple may get dragged in, but I can't see any of them really threatening the playoffs too much.
Southend and Hartlepool are the two I've got my eyes on. Of course, Southend came from behind against Forest Green and managed to get a point against them at home, of course. I think they've picked up overall on form recently, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on them. Hartlepool, for me, I've said all season, I think they've got the squad to be inside the playoffs. They've probably been a bit mismanaged. Of course, Lenny Lawrence is the current manager at the moment. I think he'll be staying until the end of the season. A lot of Hartlepool fans are a bit disappointed about that, say that it lacks ambition. But if you actually look since he's come in, the form has improved significantly. They've only had one defeat, and that came against York away from home. So for me, I look at Hartlepool as a side who could make a push if they can keep this form up. Looking towards the bottom, then we spoke quite a lot about that, but the current bottom four is as followed: Fylde, Maidenhead, Boston, and Ebbsfleet. So we'll get on with the predictions then. We are on game week 20 of the National League season. Altrincham versus York to kick things off then. How do you see it going?
I had no idea. Obviously, someone's disclosed that Alty could be a bit of a bogey side for York. I've gone with Altrincham 1, York 3. I think 4-0 win at home on Saturday, which has looked fairly convincing. I know Yeovil did their best to help them in certain areas, but they're just a team that are flying at the moment, aren't they? And I know they lost to Forest Green, but that's no disgrace there because obviously we know where Forest Green are. So I think Altrincham at home, that may help slightly, but York are just a good football side, and I think they're going to be too strong on this occasion and will win 3-1.
I've actually gone for a draw for this game. You look at Altrincham, they've only had one defeat at home all season. They've actually done pretty well at home. It's a tight pitch, isn't it? The crowd can get on top of you. And I think for York, I could see him dropping points here. Of course, you look at the form, there's nothing to really show for that. But, when you get a feeling, I really could see York dropping points. Altrincham sit 10th. They're not a bad side themselves at all. So, yeah, I could see a draw here. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. So we'll move on to the next game then now. Braintree versus Maidenhead. A big game for both clubs, sitting towards the bottom of the drop zone at the moment. Maidenhead, of course, in the drop zone, and Braintree currently sit 20th. Braintree got a big, actually, won, I believe, lost actually on Saturday to, was it Boston, I believe it was, who they lost to on Saturday. So they'll be looking to get back to winning ways. I've spoken a lot about Maidenhead being quite poor defensively recently with the amount of goals that they're conceding. For me, I think this is a game, the first goal is going to be very, very important. I think the first goal will win it, and I'm actually going to go for a Braintree win. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Braintree win. How do you see it going?
I've gone 2-1 for Braintree. It's one of the archetypal 6-pointers, isn't it? Under lights at Braintree. It's a tough old game for Maidenhead. Braintree, I know they lost to Boston, which wasn't ideal because they're, in and around that sort of same positions. But yeah, I think Braintree being at home as well and Maidenhead just getting drubbed at 5-0 on the weekend, they're not going to have a massive amount of confidence, you'd imagine. So a 6-pointer down at the bottom, and I think Braintree will come out 2-1 winners. Fair
enough. Then, yeah, everyone get your predictions in as well. 3 points if you get the result exactly correct, and 1 point if you get I should have said result. 1 point if you get the result correct, and 3 points if you get the score correct, if that makes sense to you guys. Dagenham versus Aldershot then. I know you spoke earlier about being a bit of a mid-table clash. Then if we actually look at both sides, Aldershot at the moment have only had 1 win away from home all season. They've conceded a fair amount of goals themselves. I think over 30 goals Aldershot have conceded so far this season. Dagenham have scored 31 goals. I can only see 1 winner in this game, and I'm actually going to go for quite a convincing 4-1 Dagenham win. How do you see it then going?
I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Of all the fixtures, I'm not sure this is the most exciting one. Important for them, I think, because whoever wins, Dagenham, will go above. One will go above the other, and it depends on the other results. With Southend playing at Woking, that's again another one of those. You look at Dagenham, Southend, Aldershot, Woking, they're all playing each other. So there could be some movement in the league. But and I don't think I will want to lose. Yeah, I'm not excited by this at all. I've gone with a 1-1 draw, but I think you're right. It could be 4-1, the way that these teams are letting goals in. And yeah, I think Shotts is a worry because they don't score many. I've got a gut feel that it's not going to be a particularly good game and it'll be 1-1.
I think the opposite. I think, you look at Dagenham have scored 31 goals, Aldershot have conceded 30. I think Aldershot like to play quite an attacking-minded style of football. I could see this being quite a high-scoring game. You also look at Dagenham and you look at the last 3 results and they'll be wanting to put that right. They're due to get a win, I think, overall. And I think this will be the game to do that. Aldershot very inconsistent. Of course, they won at the weekend, but still, I could see Dagenham putting a fair few goals past Aldershot. I think where they are in the league, I feel like they're in a false position because you look at those last 3 games, Dagenham, and you think they were 3 games where it was in their hands to win them. And I think they're due to win. And I think against Aldershot, they'll be able to do that. So I'm actually going to go for a 4-1 Dagenham win then. We'll move on to the next game, Gateshead versus Rochdale. Probably one of the games of the game week, if not the game of the game week. It is 4th versus 6th. A big game for both clubs. Rochdale, of course, will be wanting to stay inside the playoffs. Gateshead will be wanting to carry on their good form at the moment. Very good at home, 1 defeat at home all season. Rochdale haven't actually kept a clean sheet in the last 10 games. And they seem to struggle against the better sides. Lost to York, lost to Barnet. So when they're playing against the better sides in the division, they do seem to struggle in those fixtures. So I think Gateshead will be able to get the job done again. I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Gateshead win. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I've gone for a 2-0 Gateshead win. I saw Rochdale at the Vale a couple of weeks ago. A very professional performance from Wealdstone, and we got a 2-0 win and played very well, but a little bit disappointed in Rochdale. Obviously, very, very disappointed in the comments by Jim McNulty claiming that Wealdstone's pitch wasn't very good. It was a poor pitch, a poor game, and then the very next match, Rochdale's game's called off because their pitch can't take a bit of water. So, Rochdale they've stuttered the last couple of weeks, having no game, losing to Wealdstone, which was probably unexpected from their point of view. So, they're going to want to try get back to winning ways. I think Gateshead are just on a little bit of form as well, aren't they? And they're at home, so I've gone with a 2-0 Gateshead win.
We'll move on to the next game then now, which is, of course, Hartlepool versus Fylde. Hartlepool, a side that have certainly picked up since Lenny Lawrence has come in. Overall, they've had the 1 defeat, which came against York. They've been involved in a lot of high-scoring games, and Fylde do like to score an awful amount of goals. Although they are struggling towards the bottom. I'm actually going to go for a Hartlepool 3-2 win for this game. I'm going to back them to win. I think, like I said, they're a side that I could see kind of making a bit of a push for the playoffs. They're only 4 points off the playoffs at the moment. I think the squad's capable of doing that. There's a lot of goals in the squad. And if you look at some of the fixtures recently, 4-3 v Sutton, 4-3 v Solihull Moors, even when they lost to York, losing 5-3 in that game. They're involved in a lot of high-scoring games. So I think they'll win this game 3-2. How do you see it going?
I've gone with 3-1, actually. Pools have got a little bit of a bit of form. It's obviously what's the manager called? Kevin. He's got out of my head. Kevin Phillips. He's obviously going back to Hartlepool, so there's going to be a little bit of an incentive for them. But I think the worrying thing for Fylde is they lost 4-0 to Dagenham, they lost 5-0 to Altrincham, only 1-0 to Braintree, which is understandable. Braintree aren't big scorers, etc. I think they're letting a little bit too many goals in. 3-0 to York, 3-0 to Forest Greens, 4-3 to Yeovil. So I think you're right. Hartlepool have got their scoring boots on now, haven't they? And they've found that bit of form, and I think that will just be a little bit too strong for Fylde on this occasion. And I think Fylde do need to start picking up some results, Luke, don't they? Because in their bottom 4 and lose one, win one, lose one, win one isn't going to keep you up. You need to be a bit more consistent than that.
Oldham versus Boston then. I think Boston actually got the first win at home last season, which came last week, against Braintree. Yesterday, Oldham on great form at the moment in the form table. There's questions whether they can make a push to be involved in the title race or not. This is a game for me last season. I think if I looked at Oldham, I'd say they'd probably drop points in this game and end up drawing 1-1. But I think they're a different kettle of fish this season for me, Oldham. So I'm going to back them to win 2-0 for this game. A standard 2-0 midweek win. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I've gone with 3-0 to Oldham. I think, I don't know what the fan base is like at the moment. They're quite buoyant, so they're going to probably have a big crowd there at Boundary Park under the lights. That's a tough assignment for a team like Boston coming into the league, after a few years being out and having to try and get a result, because they're not being too great. And I think Oldham are just I've often said them, like, They've just got to get their shit together, and they feel like that's what's happened, and I think they'll take a 3-0 win tomorrow night. You know, they beat Tamworth 4-0 recently. They did very well to draw 0-0 with Barnet. You know, that's not an easy game to play. So I think they're going to be very buoyant. I think they've got the crowd behind them. Mickey Mellon seems to have sorted it out a little bit and just sort of calmed everything down. So yeah, it's a tough gig for Boston. I'm with you, Luke. Oldham will win, but I think they'll win 3-0 rather than 2-0.
Yeah, the only thing I will say in Boston's favour is, of course, they went to York, and I think they're the only side that actually beat York at York. They've beaten Sutton away from home by 3-0. So maybe it's not out of the question, but I would like to think Oldham will be able to pick up the 3 points in this game, and that's why I've gone for 2-0. Next game then that we've got is Sutton versus Solihull Moors. Sutton not played in a while. Of course, their game against us was called off. A young squad, like you've mentioned, Paul. Solihull will be wanting to put Saturday right. Losing to Hartlepool in the last minute was a disappointing result for them, especially at home. And you know, Solihull are another side for me that I feel are capable of finishing inside the playoffs this season. I think with that squad, and every time they seem to be, you know, on the verge of sneaking into the playoffs and overtaking a Halifax or a Yeovil, they seem to end up losing. It's like one step forward and 2 steps back for them at the moment. Of course, them losing to Hartlepool were quite a big loss. But I am backing them to put it right. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Solihull Moors win in this game. I think Sutton will be a bit rusty as they've not played in a while. How do you see it going?
I've gone with a 2-2 draw. It's like you said, Solihull just need to be slightly more consistent. I mean, when you look at it, Sutton are doing what they need to do. They're beating those teams below them. They're not really picking up points against teams above them. You know, lost to Oldham, lost to Gateshead, lost to Hartlepool, but beat Woking, beat Ebbsfleet, beat Southend. You know, so I think Solihull will just be. No, sorry, Solihull could be too strong for them. But I think Sutton being at home, haven't played for a week, that might have done them good. Could be rusty, but sometimes, you know, you get players back, they're rested, got a good week to prepare for a tough gig against Solihull. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw.
Fair enough. Then we'll move on to the next game, which is Woking versus Southend. Good point for Southend against Forrest Green. I think overall the form's not been too great. Woking, like we've said, takeover has been complete, but at the moment, it's still not looking good in the league table, getting closer and closer towards the drop zone at the moment. I think this will probably be one of the less entertaining games. I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw for this game. How do you see it going?
I've gone for a draw. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. I think Southend are capable of scoring. Like I sort of said, Dagenham are playing Aldershot, Woking are playing Southend. The winners, if there's going to be winners of those games, they're going to have a real advantage of getting up to 25 points and leaving the teams they possibly beat behind. So I think there's an incentive there. And I think that's why possibly none of them will probably want to lose, especially the away teams. You're getting a point away from home midweek is always looked upon as probably being a bit decent. Yeah, I know Woking didn't really cover themselves in any glory against Barnet at the weekend. Again, not to be disgraced, you know, Barnet are a good side, but worrying because they really picked up, didn't they, early on Woking after what we thought was going to be a tough sort of season for them. But they've slipped back to where we probably expect them to be. And, you know, if they lose against Southend, Wealdstone have got a game in hand. You don't know how Braintree might do. All of a sudden, Woking are in 19th, 20th points, 19th, 20th position, and I'm looking over their shoulders into that bottom four. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw just because I don't think any of them will want to lose. Both can score goals. Both are capable of letting goals in. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's probably not the most exciting game, but I've gone with a 2-2 draw.
Ebbsfleet versus Eastleigh then. Two sides that are out of form at the moment. Ebbsfleet, 2 draws for them. I could see them getting another draw in this game. It's disappointing. I think last season we had Oxford, didn't we, who were I don't know. I think they probably put a bit of more of a fight up to be able to stay up in this division at this point last season. It feels like Ebbsfleet now, it's just they're kind of already gone, which is sad to see so early on into the season. But every week they seem to be struggling. Yeah, it's not too good from their perspective. I think, like I've said, I think they're gonna go down this season, and I think everyone who's watching at the moment would be backing them to go down. I think they're projected to get similar. The only side in the last couple of years that have got a similar amount of points tallied to them was actually Dover. And Dover had a -10 points deduction and had a very, very small squad. I think apart from them, they're going to have one of the lowest points totals projected at the moment if they carry on how they're doing in history, which is sad to see. For Eastleigh, though, they're out of form. Another side, financially quite strong, kept the likes of Paul McCallum. Shade came in the summer, yet find themselves in mid-table, a little bit like Dagenham. Another side where I think if you were an Eastleigh fan, you'd be quite frustrated, thinking that you should be making a push for the playoffs, particularly when you see sides like Halifax and your Altrinchams and even your Gatesheads with budgets like they've got, being able to do better than what they're doing in the league. That must be frustrating from an Eastleigh fan's perspective. For this game, though, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I've done the same. Eastleigh are just on a wretched run of form. Do you remember early on in that season, you look at their stats, like they were unbeaten the first 4, only lost 1 in the first 7. Since then, I think they've only won 1 in the last 15 or something ridiculous. You know, got a draw against Wealdstone at the weekend, went 1-0 up. I wasn't at the game, but apparently, you know, it was a well-deserved draw from Wealdstone's perspective in horrific conditions down on the south coast, thanks to the storm. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Ebbsfleet have got to try and cling on to anything they can, and they've got to try and take advantage of Eastleigh's wretched form and try their best just to sort of claw a few points from somewhere. And I think this is one of those games they've got to look at. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Eastleigh have got a little bit too much firepower, even if they're not on form. And I have gone with a 1-1 draw, which is, you know, if you look at Eastleigh, they've not scored more than 1 in a lot of games recently, and they have drawn a lot. So yeah, a 1-1 draw I think is the fair sort of shout from both of us. That one.
My team now coming up against Forest Green Rovers. It's going to be a tough game. I think if there's any side that's capable of taking points off Forest Green, I would say it is Halifax with the way we play. Both sides play quite similar in a way. They both don't particularly like having the ball. They like to play on the counter attack. So I do think there'll be a few goals in this game. I think it'll be very end to end. I think biased is probably coming in here, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. How do you see it going?
You're probably going to be pleased with this, Luke, because I've gone Forest Green Rovers 2, Halifax 0, which probably means Halifax will win, because whenever I predict them to lose, they win and vice versa. So, yeah, listen, Halifax on a good run of form. Forest Green Rovers at home, and they're flying at the top, near the top as well. Very, very good game on paper. Hopefully it proves to be that way, but I think Forest Green will be a bit too strong, and I've gone with a 2-0 win to them. So apologies, Luke, but that may work in your favour.
Yeah, hopefully it does, to be fair. But no, from Forest Green's perspective, you know, they're a side well up there at the moment. I don't think we speak about as much as we do the likes of York and Barnet, considering how well they're doing. They're certainly going under the radar, and, you know, they're going along their business very quietly. You don't see many Forest Green fans coming on Twitter gloating. So, you know, they're a side who I've not actually seen yet. I've not seen them actually on DAZN, and I've seen very few highlights as well. So it'll be an interesting game to watch to see, you know, if Forest Green are as good as what the likes of York and Barnet are when I see them actually play on Wednesday evening. But moving on to the next game and the final game of the game week, Yeovil versus Barnet. I've spoke a lot about Yeovil and how, although they're doing very well in the league, significantly overachieving when they were inside the playoffs, I said it's only a matter of time before they start slipping off. And that's something that they've certainly started to do over the last 2 weeks or so, losing to Halifax and then losing to York. You know, two tough games, but I think if you're wanting to finish inside the playoffs, you'd like to think you could have probably got something against Halifax, or even a win against Halifax, and maybe something at York, but at least a win against Halifax. They're kind of up against the Barnet side, so for me, the tough run has really started for them. It's not the type of game I think Yeovil are wanting to have at this moment in time when they've lost 2 games on the bounce. For me, I think Barnet will win this game. I'm actually going to go for quite a convincing 3-0 Barnet win. How do you see it going?
I've gone 3-1 Barnet. Listened to Mark Cooper after Saturday. Clearly he wasn't very happy with his team's discipline. All the tactics go out the window against a team like York in the first 10 minutes when your defender gets sent off. I know they're struggling for defenders, as he's mentioned in his after-match press conference. They lost Don Bernard as well, so he's another one that's gone. So what you don't want is a lack of defenders against a team like Barnet, who clearly, when they're on song and they're at it, yes, they're liable to let goals in, but they can score goals with the likes of Nicky Kambamba. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a tough one at Hewish. I mean, the only benefit they got is that they are at home. They might be 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 there, sort of try and get behind them. I know Mark Cooper will do his best to sort of rally his troops and expect a bit of a response after really was a bit of a debacle on Saturday from their perspective. But, yeah, listen, Barnet are grinding out results as well at times. And, I think they're going to be that one of these teams, them, Forest Green, possibly Oldham, York definitely looking to get promoted, and I don't think that will change at the week. It's on Wednesday night, in fact, isn't it? On Wednesday night when they go down to Hewish Park, and I think they will be too strong for them, and will win 3-1. Fair
enough then. I think that rounds up the game week predictions then. These are the scores on the doors at the moment, 86 to 86 points. Thanks to Rob for getting you back level. I think they were like 9 points in it or something silly like that before he came along and spoiled it all and put you back in it. We did have 1 or 2 comments. We had Mickey who actually came in and said maybe Luke, you can bore them to sleep and catch for a screen while they're sleeping. Yeah, potentially that is how Halifax do seem to do it. But no, we've also had Phillies coming and said, good to see you guys back. Are you still doubting Oldham? We've spoke about you guys being inside the title race tonight. So no, we're not. I don't think you'll finish 12th if that's what you're hoping for. I do think you'll inside the playoffs. But no, yeah, your thoughts on that, Paul?
No, I think we were justly critical of Oldham at times, and I think a lot of their fans would agree with what we said, and we sort of base a lot of what we say on the back of knowing Oldham fans through social media and seeing their results on the pitch, and that inconsistency. They're becoming more consistent. They get in their shooting boots, like I said earlier, which is what they probably needed to do a little bit more. And they're just showing that level of consistency that's required at the top end of the National League, and they should be up there, Luke. We know that their potential to get 6,
about
7, 8.
Time, innit? It's about time Oldham got their act together, innit? They've been down here for 2-3 years.
listen, their fans don't want to be in the National League. We know that. We've spoken to Oldham fans a lot over the last few years on social media, and I've got to know a few, and they're good people, and they're frustrated as anybody that they're stuck in this stupid National League, and but they've got to earn the right to get out of it, and they're starting to do that this year, like the likes of Barnet and York. And the reason these teams are at the top, whether they've got big budgets and big clubs or not, they're showing levels of consistency, and they're working out what needs to be required to get promoted. So. Yeah, no, I'm not doubting Oldham. I think they'll be in the mix, and they'll upset a few people along the way. And I think, as I said, they'll do well to win quite convincingly, I think, on Tuesday night.
Yeah, let's hope Oldham can finally get out of this division. Well, Oldham fans will be hoping so. With the squad now, to be fair, Sam Clucas to be in the National League is just ridiculous, and the fact that he's still doing it as well. He played over 36 games last season in League One for Rotherham. He's made over 50 appearances in the Premier League. It's just mental and nuts. So if Oldham don't get out of this league this season, I'd I think it'd be a failure, to be honest, with that squad overall, to be brutal. They've done better than what I thought, but they've also recruited along the way from the squad that they had at the start of the season. But no, that more or less wraps up the podcast. Thank you to everyone that has, of course, tuned in tonight. It's been great to, have everyone back. A lot of people, obviously, who were listening before, and a few new faces as well. Hopefully nothing like this does happen again. I do really want to say, and I do genuinely really appreciate it, I want to say a massive thank you to you guys who are listening, because you're listening, obviously, at YouTube, because we've got a certain following now. And monetized, so that money kind of was used to obviously go towards paying for fix my laptop, I should say. And then also the rest of the money, we also had fans who actually donated towards the podcast, which I really, really do appreciate. It genuinely does mean a lot. I'm not just saying that. To be able to get my laptop back and being able to do this so soon is brilliant, to be honest. Because I was in a bit of a mess at one point. And also, if you do want to carry on supporting the channel further, you can do. And there are certain perks by doing that. You can buy us a coffee, not actually buy us a coffee, but you can go over to buy us a coffee and donate over there in like chunks, £5. I'm not too up to date with it. I've only just set it up. But what I would suggest was probably a better option is becoming a channel member for £2.99 a month if you're wanting to support the channel further, because you will also get things back from that. For example, you can use custom emojis in the live chat for your own club. So if you want to have your Oldham badge in the live chat, then you become a channel member, then you can put the Oldham badge in the live chat. But also you'll get early access to like bonus videos and interviews. For example, we've just done an interview with Justin Rees. That'll be coming out to everyone, because I never want it to go to the point where it's not, I'm making videos only available for certain people. I want it to be available for everyone, but you get early access to that interview if you, of course, become a channel member. And that is actually available to channel members at the moment. It'll be available to everyone else towards the back end of the week. So thank you to everyone that's watched tonight, and I'll leave it on this trailer video for you guys, and we will see you on Thursday evening. Bye for now. Welcome back to another edition of the pod. That didn't go well. One sec, let me restart it again. I need to get used to this because it's... There we go. I think that's it.
I sort of feel like it's big enough to be exciting, but it's also small enough that it really does feel local and really does feel like a local community club like the ones we all grew up with.
What was that process like for you taking over Southend?
This could take up the whole podcast, so let me think how I answer that.
Was there ever a time for you when you thought this is more hassle than it's worth?
The stress and also the financial outlay was getting quite significant. He'll bring a lot, right? He's grown technology companies to really large levels. Like the rest of us, loves football. He was actually looking at other clubs and then he really fell in love with our story, similar to me really. We're glad that he chose to join us. He's ambitious, he's a disruptor, he wants things to move quickly, he wants us to move forward.
Yeah, how is that relationship since you've come into the club with the likes of Kevin Mayer and John Still?
I think it's good. hopefully I think it's good. When we take the first brick out and start the rebuilding will depend on all sorts of things, but it is an absolute priority to put a new East Stand in.
I just want to ask you, about the fan base. How supportive have they been?
Oh, it's been incredible. The fan base really galvanised. The crowds were really, really strong, even in the National League before we came over. They've been incredibly strong since. That bond between the players and the fans that was built under difficult circumstances, I think was really, really special. We could see that. I didn't know how long the honeymoon period would last, right? But they've been very nice to me and they've cut me some slack. You want to manage expectations a little bit. Not too much, because football is about dreaming and hoping, and every team should wake up in August going, hey, we're going to win the league or make the playoffs, and our fans should be no different. I want Southend to be proud of its club and feel like that we're representing them the way they want to be represented.
Welcome back